Welcome to Clark County Today. I'm your host, David Madore, and today our guest is Larry Patella, Commander Larry Patella. Larry, we want to know about your background. You have served for some time in the military, and well, let's get to know you a little bit. You're one of our distinguished senior citizens, and I want to make sure that the community knows who you are. You've been very actively involved in our local community, and we want to be able to see some of your background.
Well, I think a lot of people know who I am, but I spent 31 years in the United States Navy, and probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. I really enjoyed being in the Navy, and it was a very fulfilling life.
And you signed up as an enlisted man?
I did. I signed up as an enlisted man. I did something very stupid. I quit high school in my senior year with only 1 month left to go and joined the Navy.
Why did you do that?
Just on a spur of the moment.
Were you not at war during the time, or?
No. Well, it was right at the end of World War II.
Okay, so right at the end. You mean during the war?
1947.
Before it had finished?
No, this was 1947.
Okay.
And another fellow and I, we were just playing hooky from school one day, and so one of us said, "Let's join the Navy." So we went down and joined the Navy, and after I got in the Navy, I realized what a mistake I had made, and so I wrote to the school, got my high school diploma, and spent probably the next 20 years going to college at night whenever we were in port or doing whatever, and got a degree. And
so you finished your degree while you were in the Navy?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
This was, now when you went into the Navy, you went through boot camp like
I went through boot camp.
People normally do?
Yeah, went through boot camp, and
you started at the bottom as a seaman?
I started right at the very, I was what they call an E1, which is a recruit, and I worked my way up to be a chief radarman, a chief petty officer.
Radarman. So in other words, you went through some technical training in order to know how to operate the radar equipment.
Right. Well, matter of fact, I had a double dose. I went to sonarman school first. Right after I got out of boot camp, I went to sonar school. And after sonar school, which was a 6-month electronic school, I went to a ship, and the ship got a mandatory quota to send one person to radarman school. And there were only 2 people on board ship that had high enough, what we call GCTs and ARIs. And so the other gentleman was senior to me, so I was selected and I went to radar school. So then I went to radar school. And
in other words, they took the more junior man.
Right.
That they didn't want to spare in other words, you were.
I was
how'd you feel about that? You feel
it was fine with me, and I went to, so I wound up being a radarman. I advanced through the rank to chief petty officer.
So you must have enjoyed it.
Oh, I enjoyed it very much, and then I
chief petty officer. That's like E1, 2, 3. How?
That's E7.
E7. So, and how long a time you went from E1 to E7?
It took me 7 years.
That's a pretty good clip.
Yeah, it's about minimum amount of time that you can do it, and so I got to.
So you already had a high achiever record right from the beginning. It sounds like.
So I decided that okay, what do I do now? So I applied for a commission, and I passed the test and went to officers candidate school, and got commissioned as an ensign.
Really? So you went from the highest ranking position you can have as a enlisted man is there's chief petty officer. Is there?
In those days that was as high as you can go, but later on they added 2 more pay grades onto that.
Okay, so when you were there, you maxed it out. You got as high as you can get in the enlisted, and then you applied for an officer program. Right. You were accepted into that, and then you went. There must have been some schooling involved in that.
Well, I went to officers candidate school in Newport, Rhode Island.
Okay.
Where we used to call it a knife and fork school. Teach you how to eat with a knife and fork. So, but and it was a very strenuous school, but very, very interesting and very exciting for me.
So your training consisted of following orders, being precise, and what all did they teach you during that
Well,
school?
you learn all about the different aspects. You have a few weeks of gunnery type information. You have a few weeks of engineering, what goes on below decks and on board a ship.
So they expose you to all the different
expose you
positions?
all the different facts that you're going to find on board ship.
And you graduated in that, and from then you were an ensign, which is an officer, and that required everybody, all the enlisted men to salute you, and they.
Yeah, and so I was assigned to a destroyer,
And where was the destroyer?
The
what
destroyer
coast?
was operating out of Norfolk, Virginia. And I
Okay.
was assigned to a destroyer, and from there I went to shore duty in Virginia as what they call an air intercept controller. That was the days before we had all these radars on board airplanes. People like me would direct our aircraft in a position to where he could shoot down the enemy aircraft.
In other words, you had access to radar, ground radar,
right.
And the aircraft couldn't carry radar, so you would look on your screen and you would relay them via radio where the aircraft were, head that direction.
And I would tell them how to get there and what speed to go and all of those various things. And from there I went to an aircraft carrier.
What was that carrier?
It was a USS Princeton. It was an old World War II carrier that they converted into an amphibious aircraft carrier. And
what's an amphibious aircraft carrier?
that's one that carries pretty much almost a battalion of Marines and a lot of helicopters for what you would call vertical envelopment. When instead of invading an enemy shore by boats, you do it by air.
Okay, so you carried basically aircraft that would land. Would they parachute or how would they get?
No, they would land on the shore.
Using helicopters?
In the helicopter.
Was this before they actually had fixed-wing aircraft that could land on carriers?
No. This was during the same time. This was a
This
specialty
in the
operation.
40s or the 19?
This was in the 50s and early 60s.
Okay, all right. So we're all right.
Yeah.
Not that far back.
Not that far back. And so, then from there I went to I got command of the USS Jennings County.
You said command of.
Yeah.
In other words, you were given a command. You were the captain of the ship at that point?
I became the commanding officer of it. And it was the first ship that was designed to support river operations in the Vietnam Delta. And I had...
Was this during the Vietnam War?
During the Vietnam War. I had two helicopters on board and 10 river patrol boats, and my job was to patrol up and down the rivers and interdict the bad guys from using the rivers.
So during the Vietnam War, you were a commander of your own ship in wartime,
right.
And your job was to patrol enemy territory.
Right.
And you handed me some pictures here.
Right.
Is one of these pictures?
Yeah, the smaller one is the Jennings County.
Okay.
And it was specially configured. You can see it's got a flight deck there, and where the helicopters would carry, and on the side here you probably can't see it, but we had booms on the side where we had fiberglass river patrol boats that would tie up to them, and we would steam up and down the rivers, dragging the boats with us and the helicopters on board, and our boats would go out on patrol, and the helicopters would, if they got in trouble, our helicopters would get airborne and come to their rescue. And
did you actually engage the enemy?
yes, we had more engagement than I care to think about.
Is that right? So that must have been a challenge for you and a challenge for your men.
It was very challenging.
Did any men lose their lives in that?
Yes,
time?
we had a few fatal casualties.
That must have. I can't imagine what that must be like.
It's a terrible thing. And of course, then you have to write a letter to the parents and explain.
And you ended up having to do that?
And I did that, several times.
Are those memories fresh with you?
Oh yeah. I don't think you'd ever forget those things. So.
And how long did you serve aboard that ship?
I served I served there for a year, doing that for a year, and then my boss, who was an admiral, was the commander of the amphibious force Pacific Fleet, asked me if I would extend my tour in Vietnam and become part of the river operations where they had the 9th Infantry Division. He wanted me to learn that part of it, and so I naturally accepted, and he wanted me to be his special warfare officer when I came back to the United States. So I spent another 2 months with the 9th Infantry Division down in the Delta, crawling through rice paddies and putting up.
So you're not on a ship at this time. You're actually like the Army. You're on.
It was with the 9th Infantry Division, and they were doing search and destroy missions.
Is that Marines or is that Air Force? I mean,
No,
Marines or Army?
No, U.S. Army.
Okay. So you're actually out there with the. Did you engage the enemy at that time?
Oh yeah, a few times. Yeah.
So you're on the ground and out on the ship out there during the Vietnam War.
Right.
Were you ever wounded?
No. I was very fortunate.
You must have been shot at. You ever felt you were?
I think good Lord was looking after me.
Yeah. Oh, you're still here. We'll be thankful for that.
Yeah.
So how long did you spend in that situation? Were you out there in the rice paddies crawling around?
Just to get a good feel for it, and then I came back and spent 2 years on the staff of the Commander Amphibious Force Pacific Fleet, and then from that job I went to command another larger LST, a larger and newer LST.
What's an LST?
It's a landing ship tank.
Okay, you gave me there's another.
Smaller. It's a larger version of that smaller one there.
Okay,
Yeah.
and now I have one other picture here. You tell me when to bring that up.
Okay, and so I had that, and I had one of the most interesting tours on that ship. I was assigned to demonstrate a Boeing hydrofoil to all the NATO nations.
A hydrofoil.
A hydrofoil.
How big was that?
It was
vehicle?
50 feet long, and it actually flew through the water.
Was that new back then? I mean,
it was very new, very.
So back then that was new technology. That was
technology.
Was that the late 60s?
And the thing would do about 50 or 60 knots on its struts, on its wings, and my job was to demonstrate it to all the NATO nations because they were trying to develop a NATO hydrofoil. But the interesting part of that was that we were going to go to all of these wonderful and interesting countries throughout Europe and the western part of Asia, and so I had an idea, and so I wrote a letter via the chain of command to the Chief of Naval Operations and said, as long as we're going to all these wonderful places, wouldn't it be nice if we could embark our wives on board and between these ports? And I got approval to do that. So we started off our tour in Copenhagen. Then we went to England. We went to 3 ports.
With your wives?
We took our wives between ports.
Okay.
Like we went from Copenhagen to Portsmouth, England, and when the wives were allowed to ride on board, as soon as they got on board, then we have to put them ashore, and they go live in hotels or whatnot.
Do they ever do that these days?
No, they don't do that anymore.
That must have been interesting.
There was a lot of resistance from some of the higher ups in the Navy because they didn't want those women on board ship.
What was your experience? You felt like that was great? Or?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was just great. And the sailors just loved it. A lot of sailors had their wives on board, and we had wives cooking in the galley and providing meals, and it was just delightful.
So that was a significant change in the diet, huh?
Yeah. So we went all the way from England into France into Turkey, Spain, and we spent 7 months demonstrating this hydrofoil to all the NATO nations.
And during that 7 months, your wives are riding between ports
right,
with you?
They're riding between.
Are you aware that has ever happened at any time since
I don't think
then?
that's ever happened again.
So
in the
you
Navy.
set the precedent here when it comes to getting your wives to ride on board.
Right, and then from there I went to be the executive officer on another ship called the USS Duluth.
Okay, we're going to have to break here.
Okay.
Because we've run out. I can't believe we've almost lapsed 15 minutes so far. So, thank you, Larry. We're going to pause. And if you're watching on YouTube or watching on Coov, down there, click. The next part comes up. Thank you.
But